Excellent. Do. Okay, if I haven't muted you, please make sure your computer is on mute, and we'll start very shortly now. There's 29 of us here. Excellent. All right, let's go. Hi guys. Lovely to welcome you all to the first North London group online talk. I'm very, very grateful and proud to introduce you to a great friend and painter, my dear friend Deborah, as I'm sure you're all well aware of her work. Lots to say about Deborah. I could probably do a talk on our friendship and her work all on my own, but I'll leave it to her very, very able hands. And so thank you so much for showing up, and it's just lovely to host you all and just admitting one more to the chat. And I'll hand you over to Deborah. Thanks so much. Deborah.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm so pleased to help launch this North London group series of talks. I was already very blown away by the student work of Josh's students at his recent landscape marathon, an immersive landscape. I forget the title, but it was good. I like the immersive part, and the work was fantastic. I will be following this series, and I'm happy to kick it off. I'll be discussing my work. It's not going to be a life story. It's going to be a story of my process. And okay. And to make it worth your while, I'll be discussing my influences as well. Getting into my influences, I really wanted to stop discussing my own work and just give a whole lecture on my influences, because it's just what I really love to talk about the most. But I've also invited my own students here from the Jerusalem Studio School, so hopefully it will be useful to some of you. And so here we go. So are we screen shared? Are we good? Okay.
I feel like I'm the only person.
I think Israel and Yael. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. I think you guys have to meet. All right. You cut on.
Deborah, sorry, just before you begin, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, if anybody has any questions during the chat, during the talk, please just type questions into the chat, and at the end we will, present first comes first serve, first comes into the we'll present your questions to Deborah. First comes first served. Okay, thanks so much. I will mute myself.
And the shared screen, do you see it with that banner? This meeting is being recorded? No. Okay. So that's just on my end. All right. So to kick it off, I did this painting based on a Titian. It's a detail. And this is something I did when I was 20. And it was the first time that, something came together for me. I really didn't feel that way at the time. I was just kind of really frustrated. I was so blown away by the colors in that Titian, and nothing was good enough. And at some point, Didi and another fellow student, Erez, came over and they said, just stop, something really has come together here. And I didn't see it for a very long time, but this was the first moment that, I didn't see it, but then again, I also saw that I mixed color that was more complex than I intended to mix, that there was something of a harmony, and that in fact that I captured some character of what I was trying to observe. And that's when I first understood that observation is full of surprises. It's not, it's not necessarily what you think you're after that you're going to capture, especially in those wonderful years in the beginning where you're discovering your ability, and that there's so many things that we can in fact attain, whether it's the color harmony, or even just not the exact color harmony, but the kind of relationship the colors are having, if that makes any sense. Then I went to New York, and there was this wonderful Courbet show at the Met, and it also was paired with this show of Poussin landscapes with ink washes as well. It was fantastic. It was just a great time to be at the Met. I went to visit my mom in Passover, because I'm from New York, and I was studying in Jerusalem at the time, at the Jerusalem Studio School. And I came back, and I did this based on a little sepia photograph that was in the Courbet book I bought. And then again, it was, it was just bit by bit. Like, I don't have a lot to show from my student years, but bit by bit, things started to click for me in certain works, and that's, I'm going to go quickly through it for I wish that was mine. Okay, this is Morandi. After my kind of obsession with Courbet, I went to Italy with the Jerusalem Studio School, and I saw Morandi's in the flesh for the first time, and it was totally perplexing. Honestly, it was upsetting. It was liberating. It was upsetting. There's something about a good Morandi that's upsetting, because that's all you want to do. And so then he started to get into my system, but I understood very quickly that if I was ever going to approach what Morandi was doing, I would have to maybe look at the artists that Morandi was looking at, and I had to do it indirectly. And I started to paint some of the landscape in Jerusalem. And this is, again, this is not a great landscape, but it was just something started to click for me. And obviously, as being part of the Jerusalem Studio School, Edwin Dickinson is a major part of the legacy. For anyone here who might not know about Edwin Dickinson, do enjoy the discovery. And I understood, I actually discovered Edwin Dickinson the year before I joined the JSS in a pretty peculiar way. My dental hygienist in Central Park South, she was Dickinson's dental hygienist. And I told her I was a painter. I wanted to be a painter. I had to be like 18, 19 at the time. And she was like, well, pull out those two books. And there was a book of two artists that she had been their dental hygienist. One was Balcom Green and Edwin Dickinson. And I liked them both. Balcom Green was an interesting painter, but I was so taken by Dickinson. I mean, all of his work seemed to have a sweep that would just grab me into it. And even then, knowing so little about painting, I completely was mesmerized by his work. But it took me a good few years in the JSS to understand what to do with it. And this is just a terrific painting. Yeah, so this I did, I think in my last, this was a really, really quick premiere coup that I did in the last marathon at the JSS, or the second to last. It was the one where Kurt Nobelsdorf was the guest of honor. It had to be 2010. And I started to understand a little better how to incorporate Dickinson in Jerusalem, which is not very obvious to some of us. it's quite a different landscape than Cape Cod, quite a different light also. And yeah, this was exciting for me. It was like my quickest painting. And it was funny. I was starting to get the sense that I had more of a connection with landscape than with the figure. And it was at first I was very upset by that because, you know, when I decided that I was a painter, well, I didn't decide when, you know, just wanting to be a painter growing up. I always pictured myself painting figures, and I never thought about landscape, probably because, you know, I grew up in with tall buildings in Brooklyn, and I never went hiking. I just didn't have that connection to nature, or I just wanted to paint the figures. I just, you know, and I was upset at first. I was like, gosh, why is landscape the only thing that's clicking for me? But I know now why, and that's because with landscape you have to get the first impression, and it's in attaining the first impression that you manage to capture a kind of a transcendent truth, and you don't necessarily fall into you don't risk being false as much if you know how to go after the first impression. And falseness can happen easily to a naive young artist. So then after the Jerusalem Studio School, we moved to, I moved with my husband, Yedidia Hirschberg, back to Brooklyn. And I continued painting landscape. And this was a landscape I did in my neighborhood. You know, I'm obviously still thinking about Dickinson. It's a little rigid, but I like it's got some moments of nice painting. And this is a painting I did in what we were using as our studio at the time. It was my old bedroom. And here I started to look at, you know, I had the privilege of being in New York. And at the time, Roy Davis from Davis and Langdale was still alive, very kindly showed us his collection of Gwen Johns. And she started to seep in also in her sense of color, her grays definitely started to seep in. And then we went to, this is a few years later, there was a quite dramatic few years, and a couple years, that is. And then we went to see Israel's program in Civita Castellana for a couple weeks. And I remember doing this. I was with Beth Bernhardt, and Didi, and we were behind the hospital. And it was a painting. This was not a premiere coup. I went back twice, and the second time I went back, the sky was doing this. And apparently that's what my painting needed. And that was yet again an exciting moment, but a moment where I was just like, am I going to be a landscape painter? When you're young, you're always trying to identify yourself. It's really quite silly. And then back to America, back to the studio. At this point, I think I might have started grad school in the University of New Hampshire. And there was this, it's funny to bring it up now. There was this major kerfuffle in Ukraine, I believe this was. And honestly, I had my reservations about showing this painting because I think the original photo of this, or from that particular brawl, is in one of those viral lists of moments that look like a Renaissance painting. But not when I painted it. That wasn't a viral thing going around. But anyway, I had seen this wonderful painting by Leonard Anderson where he did this kind of courtroom scene. And I just thought it was really funny to see how these like very boxy suits kind of sat up on their shoulders as they were, you know, having all this movement. You know, it was interesting to me. And to just, you know, do a bunch of heads. I decided if I was going to get good at the figure, I would have to treat the figure for a little while like a landscape, and just do them in a kind of a midst of chaos, you know, kind of sorting out chaos. What Wittgenstein might have referred to as the natural arrangement of aesthetics or something like that. Yeah, and I was looking at Vard also a lot too. This is when I started looking at Vard. This is from a Polaroid I found. This is a picture of the one and only, my father-in-law and my teacher, Israel Hirschberg, at Alan Feltus's house in Italy, in Assisi. And his wife, Lonnie Irwin, painted the table in some kind of a Parcheesi print. It was kind of a wild place. And I liked how that light kind of had a film noir feeling about it, but at the same time, there was so much color in the situation. This I did in grad school. It would, well, all of these I did in grad school, but this one was an assignment. And you know, we had to do assignments, which was crazy for me. But you know, being told what to paint, but fine. And they said, make a collage from a TV show and then make a painting of that. So they kind of, it was kind of like the frog in boiling water, because first they told us to make a collage from the TV show and we didn't know we were going to have to make a painting from that. And then they kept doing that. They just kept telling you to do one part of it. And then next thing you know, to your horror, it had to lead to a painting or something. So a lot of those aren't here. But this one I kept. It was splices of Seinfeld. For anyone who's a major Seinfeld fan, and I have a feeling we have a few of those in the audience tonight. There's Kramer coming out of the shower in that pink towel. And then again, Kramer again saying, smoking a cigarette and acting hip. That episode, I really can't remember what it's about. But I like the painting. It worked out. Oh, then, you know, I went to Paris enough times with Didi and marveled at these Coros, and I decided that was all I wanted to do. At this point, I had no more complexes about landscape. I just wanted to be Coro. I mean, look at this. This is a detail, okay? I don't want to misinform anyone who's not familiar with this painting. This is a detail of a larger painting of the Colosseum and the Forum. And it is just, makes you drunk with color. And so then we went back to Civita Castellana, and they, you know, it just, they were with me every step of the way. especially those Roman landscapes of his, of the Forum and the Colosseum. I mean, I like all Corot's, who am I kidding? But those ones at that time had the biggest impact. This is in Nepi. I was again with Beth Bernhardt and Yael Scalia. It helps to hang out with good painters also. That's, I've been really lucky. This one, Didi has a version of this. And it was my motif. I started it. He didn't know what to do. And he did this. He did a version of this. It's beautiful. I didn't put it in the lecture because he thinks it's better than this, because he doesn't like the fact that I didn't have an imprimatura on this one. And there's a lot of whites. A friend of mine and Alexa and I, we tried to put a hex on Didi's painting while he was still in the middle of doing it. We danced around to make sure that mine would be the better one. And I'm not sure it worked. Anyway, feel free to look it up. I did not put it in the lecture. Oh, and this one is not, I was still very much in Italy, and I did this when it was fresh in my mind, but it was not, obviously not from nature. I would not have painted next to that pig. I was with Yael, and that pig was for sure pregnant. Huge. And I snapped a photo. Actually, in the photo, the dog, Agustina was her name. She was facing the same direction as the pig, so I just kind of reversed it for the sake of the composition, and it was a quick premier coup, but I feel like it was from life because it was just so fresh in my mind. It wouldn't have been the kind of thing that I could have done in 20 minutes had I waited till I came back home and got off a plane, but technically not. It was from a photo. And a beautiful unfinished Wenjan, because why not? She really, there are painters like Courbet and Morandi and Wenjan that that just keep coming back to set me straight, literally to set me straight. And this is a painting, around this time Didi had done this painting. We're still in grad school here. And I've always been very moved by my husband's work, Didier Hirschberg. He has a very different temperament than my own. And I enjoy that. I enjoy hanging out with painters with different temperaments. I find it useful. I find it keeps my mind open, and I enjoy the differences at the same time, you know. And but this one was one that that I really felt I could pull from. This one meant a lot to me. I still love this painting very much. And I discovered this Whistler. That's when I got into Whistler. We went to the Fog, the Harvard Museum, and he's got these great names. He has this one that's called Symphony and Peaches. I almost called it Peaches and Cream. I think it's Symphony and Peaches. And it was a kind of painting that, it was one of those long vertical paintings of a standing figure, a woman in a dress. And it was a kind of painting that maybe at the time, if I saw it reproduced in a book, that I might have ignored. But seeing it in the flesh, I started to understand Whistler. Again, very different temperament than my own, very different surfaces. He uses a lot of transparencies. but, you know, you don't know how these things will affect you. And, you know, I just, I started to look at a lot more Whistler. And I discovered this one. I was just I remember I was just blown away by it at the time. I would just, you know, run into a friend and be like, have you seen this painting? And it connected very much with my obsession with fresco and fresco surfaces. Unlike anyone else, really. So that started to really seep into my process, and I did this painting after gushing all over the above mentioned. It was kind of, you know, I was looking at those torsos and the frescoes, and you know, it was a painting where I wanted fresco, I wanted Gwen-Jean, I wanted Whistler, I wanted everything. And then, you know, turns out that it was kind of a funny composition for a portrait. Like both the hands were cropped. And I thought, man, you know, look at his stern expression. I was like, how do I save this painting? And so I added my cat. And you know, and that's actually also when I started looking at Freud. I was convinced I didn't like Freud at the time, but I thought, damn, you know, he's really good at painting animals. You know, that's how I started getting into Freud. I thought he was really good at, you know, every time, you know, I saw one of his orange yellow figures, and there would be like, you know, his whippet or some kind of what are those dogs called? Not the Jack Russell. There's one I think with the Jack Russell. I mean, I just was like, you know, Freud, he's not my cup of tea, but you know, he really knows how to paint an animal. That's how I got into him. It's totally ridiculous. But yeah, so as you can see, the cat really saves the painting. You know, it doesn't look like I'm trying to paint my husband as Christ. And, you know, you don't even notice that both the hands are just cropped out. That's another thing Freud is good for. Wild crops, you know, he'll crop out both the elbows. He'll just, you know, go so far with the form that you don't even notice that there's, you know, the figure is cut off in almost a brutal way at times. Yeah. And continuing, and now I'm obviously not just looking at Freud for the animals, but also for the couches. No, I just I started to notice also that how intimate his compositions were. How compressed the space would be. And it was just a major question for me at the time. How do you paint the figure in a way that doesn't feel like life drawing or life painting classroom? How do you just make, you know, a kind of relaxed figure, you know, on a couch or on a bed? And how do you make that interesting? How do you make that, I want to say dramatic, but not in any kind of overt way or conscious way. So yeah, this was like my first major, like this is a pretty big painting for me at the time anyway. And I spent half my grad school doing this. And grad school, I should clarify, grad school was 2 years in the program I was in, and I didn't spend the whole year on it, but I spent a good deal of the year on it. And it was a very important painting for me. Obviously, the teachers just wanted to talk about the slipper. Apparently, it's fraught with symbolism that I knew nothing about. I just wanted that pop of orange. And that's a quicker study of my model at the time, Grace. And gearing up for the landscape again, I noticed that Italy had, I mean, we always talk about the light of Italy, but that light causes a lot of kind of darkness in its shadow masses, like a deep, deep darkness. And I just thought, I want that. And so I started looking at paintings that I thought would help me navigate that. And this is a painting not done in Italy, done in Jerusalem by Israel Hirschberg, that called Trio, part of his tree portrait series. And one of my favorite paintings in the world. In fact, I was gonna recommend to Josh that we should do a series of desert island paintings. And I think this would make it in my desert island paintings. I just I mean, it's like a cataclysmic tree situation here. I mean, those marks, just gorgeous. So I did a copy of it, which I'm sparing you guys of. And I was looking at this and also this Morandi in particular, a lot. I was looking at this one a lot because I just wanted to get those beautiful, rich, deep shadow masses that were happening in Italy. And it's, you know, you almost feel sometimes when you're there that you have to make a green out of like Winsor Newton violet or something. It's just so dark. And you can catch Coro doing that here and there, and you know, in not the Bridge of Narni, but the Cascada de Marmolada, I think that one. And so, yeah, I went back to the usual place that I like to go to when in Civita, the garden, where you can see all those beautiful old stucco buildings. And yeah, I just I think this is a painting that where that kind of really where I managed to capture what I was after as far as that. This is a great feeling. A few more landscapes that I did that summer, or just one. And yeah, then I started, you know, now that I was painting the figure more, I started to wonder about how to paint the male nude. And you know, I just realized how lyrical one could be with the male nude. It's just you know, kind of the difference between painting an egg and a potato in a way. You know, I didn't feel a need to make the figure connect in a very soft and perfect way, where there was you know, the body was broken up in you know, different parts with the different amounts of body hair, let's say. It just presented different opportunities. And And I looked at Pontormo a lot, and he gave me the permission to kind of bend the forms even more, and kind of elongate things. And it wasn't very conscious, you know, but you know, at the end of the day, it's just I have to admit that a lot of my male nudes have couple extra ribs, and I blame Pontormo. I'm not ashamed. And oh yeah, I discovered there was a couple of these at the Capitolini that summer of Michelangelo's The Slaves, and fantastic sculptures if you don't know them. And it just, you know, it was very provocative for me. It made me wonder, you know, I just never thought of male beauty. I never did. I was too busy wondering what to wear, you know, what worked and what didn't on my own situation. Quite frankly, I was not busy thinking about male, you know, what male aesthetics or beauty or any of that. And just decided to kind of explore it as a painter a little bit. And you know, looking at these sculptures, I mean, it really got me thinking about it. And, you know, it was kind of, you know, looking at these sculptures was basically looking at a phenomenon that I've never considered. Is basically what happened. And again, just really, you know, I really started to understand Freud on a deeper level here when I found out that he was very inspired by Rococo painting. Light, frothy Rococo painting. It made me realize what he was doing. I realized this was a man who was painting directly, without sables or liquid medium, like a Rococo painter, to a certain extent. And I just thought, well, that's a brilliant integration of influences. And I really started to see it. This is a detail from Watteau, the comedians, I believe. And this is Caravaggio, for those of you who don't know. And here's a detail of that head. And I just, I started to see the softness in Freud as well, and the play, the sense of play. And well, I wanted in on the conversation. To be honest, it got me looking at reconsidering Rococo painting quite a bit, mostly Watteau. Although I do confess I like a couple Fragonards very much these days. And so I started doing some premiere coups. I'm still in New York. I'm about to go back to Italy. And here we are in Italy. And I'm kind of thinking of that kind of mask, that kind of harlequin that seems to show up from Rococo, Caravaggio, to Freud. This kind of symbol is starting to get in my system. I'm back in Brooklyn. Yeah, I'm grouping this based on that certain exploration. And this is a bigger painting. It's kind of a culmination of that whole research. And Yeah, I really, this is really a response to those paintings I showed you earlier. I was thinking of the one of I think his name is Lee Rigby a lot. I was thinking of Rococo painting a lot. After quite a few studies, this one came quite naturally. And yeah, this one was in a moment of insanity, really. We were about to go to bed, and I was just like, wait, I just got to do this painting, and I did it really, really quickly. And I just never knew what came over me there, because you know, I wasn't painting that much in artificial light, and what came over me that I had to do like slam out a quick painting right before bed. I brought up my easel into our bedroom and everything, and then later I came across this Degas, and I thought, you know, maybe that's why I was so possessed. It's just I saw an opportunity to respond to this beautiful work, and because I remember thinking something about the way the legs went into space, and the way the boxer shorts were bunched up, and the light. I had to do something about it. And yeah, I think this was in there. And because sometimes influences don't happen very consciously. I mean, if you're constantly engaged with works of art, it happens that way as well, which is very exciting. Am I supposed to be looking at the chats for questions? Okay. I just see the number going up, and oh, and then, you know, continuing with the question of how to paint a figure in a situation that doesn't just feel like life drawing or life painting. I decided I was going to do, I was going to paint the figure like if Icarus fell on a bed. And so there's a few kind of Icarus fallen on a bed paintings, and I just I really like bedding. I mean, what happened in the duvet in this one was really quite fortuitous. That little white, I just not planned at all. That little white peacock kind of motif there. You know, I just I thought, I remember thinking, you know, and this is also something that, you know, I think I pulled from Freud, which is treating, you know, sometimes in his painting of the, I think, Big Suit, the couch, I mean, the folds in the couch are just as fleshy as the figure. And I very much took that attitude with the bedding as well. Another kind of Icarus fallen on a bed. Rather quick painting. And here we move back to Israel. And so I got to explore the bright light that the first thing that hit me was that stark light compared to Brooklyn. And so I was continuing the same exploration, but a different light. And much like the Degas I just showed you, but also like this Akins, I had been wanting to do a painting with a head kind of in the dark for a while. I don't really manufacture these situations. There's something I want to do, and when the situation presents itself, if you paint enough, the situation will present itself. That's when I go for it. And so this was my response to that wonderful Thomas Eakins study of Jesus, his study for a bigger painting of Christ. Bigger painting is nice too, but this study is it's just really gorgeous. It's just a really, really special painting. And that darkened head, it just it's just tragic. It just really struck me. And so yeah, these are my way of kind of by pursuing certain abstract qualities, just kind of bringing a different kind of atmosphere to just a reclining nude. And then the question developed, how do I paint a portrait in a way that feels spontaneous and not portraity, for want of a better word. And so I started to again think about landscape. Landscape always helped me compose 100%. In fact, even in paintings like this, I was thinking about, where's your sky? What piece of the painting opens up the air? And I'm always thinking of landscape when I'm composing anything for that matter, not necessarily just in the landscape. And so in the landscape, in the chaos of the landscape, one often finds that, like, whatever the main attraction in a motif is, you can't necessarily put it up front and center. You have to kind of situate it in a way that will draw the eye there. You really compose more in the landscape, whether you want to or not, just because it's more chaotic. And so I started to think about those concepts with just painting these small heads, just having these friends of mine sit for me. This is a painter, or Ken Drawer, wonderful painter. Another painter and a good friend, Mika Solomon. Another quick painting. That was just and this is the sister of a really good friend, Rivka Slamowitz, also terrific painter. And I was thinking about that Bellini. I wanted to put it in, but I don't have a good image of it. Not that Bellini, excuse me, that Damascena, of that figure with the blue habit and the way it activates her cheek. And I was thinking of that a lot here with painting Elisheva. Didi was behind her eating lunch, and his pink shirt, just kind of set the whole painting off. Sure. And I did another one, because why not? And yeah, then I did a few here and there. I'll do a still life. It's really not something I do often. And when I do, it tends to be like the landscape also, because it tends to be with sunlight, which is not something that most people do when painting still life. But I always have this still life table full of still life, and it's kind of a mess in case I ever want to get to it. And here I didn't set anything up, but the sun kind of breaks across it in a way that was interesting. And And so, you know, I just did a quick capture of it. And I did a few of these throughout the year. Here's another one, a vertical one. Always with the sun. And here's another one. And yeah, truth be told, I did not set anything up. My hat's off to anyone out there who paints still life. I mean, setting up a still life. You know, many times I'll critique my students about their still life setup, and I will go home the next day and try to set up a still life, because I'm just like, if you're going to critique people about it, you should do it. And I do it, and it's not easy. It is not easy. I went back to Vard. I was looking at Vard again because I like his use of whites. Well, at that moment, I like Vard for so many more reasons, but at that moment, that's what I was. I became interested in whites, and at that moment, that's what I was. You know, the way it kind of makes every other color a silhouette or just a shape. And so I went back to Italy, and I did a couple portraits with that in mind. This is El-Hanan, landscape painter. When this is my husband, Didi, eating mozzarella. And yeah, just if you look at enough painting, all kinds of opportunities present themselves, because everything you'll be looking at some point will happen. So it's not contrived, you know. We just happened to be in Italy. We're staying in an apartment where the kitchen was all white, and so was the mozzarella, and so was his shirt, fortunately. So in a way, I got to do my version of this little one that is in the Orsay, although not always up for view, or either that, or you would have to find it in the mess of the Orsay. I mean, great museum, guys. I'm not trying to say anything controversial here, but sometimes things are really lost somewhere in the 5th floor there. It's a tiring museum. Yeah, and just thinking about shapes and how things disappear into things. You know, this figure's head is down, so her head kind of disappears into the headboard, so it kind of looks like a headless figure. But thinking about it as far as not in a macabre way, as far as it was Vuillard's influence. And this is, you know, I'm also thinking of Vuillard, but honestly, obviously, I'm also thinking about Fresco. Fresco surfaces is just a constant obsession. And then that summer, you know, I ended up doing a lot of administrative things. That's why I you know, have mostly figures, but I ended up having time to do one landscape painting right next to where we were staying. It's fabulous. Yeah, church. I mean, its edifice is so beautiful. The color is so beautiful. But I called it across from Luca's, because Luca is where the fresh pasta is, and to me, that's the landmark in that particular spot of Civita Castellana. And again, playing with portraits, I painted my wonderful friend and incredible landscape painter, Beth Bernhardt, in this painting. And this painting is more of a drawing. I wanted to kind of treat paint more like I was drawing with it. So kind of bend the rules as far as the light being the opacity. And, you know, there's just, it's bare canvas, really, the lights in this one and in this one. You know, I did use a little medium, I think liquid, but I'm not sure. And they're kind of, they're drawings really, with a little color. Medium-sized works. Again, asking myself questions about, you know, how to make a portrait not overly portraity. Not overly staged. Here as well. Here you have a bit of my good old still life table in the background. So there's a bit of a merging there. I painted this guy like Shakespeare. I mean, it's better than the Drew's doublet. Another, I kind of a portrait. I wouldn't necessarily classify this portrait as just a figure painting, I guess. Of a girl that worked, she's a local from Civita Castellana, a beautiful girl. She was working at the bar there at the Stapo, and I asked to paint her, and she came early in the morning, and she came with a full face of makeup, you know, for her picture. And at first I was, she obviously didn't need any makeup, but first I was kind of put off by it. I thought, how do I paint that? I mean, it's maybe too much. And then I thought, and then I realized, you know, that's the painting. It's a woman who doesn't, you know, necessarily need all the adornment with the adornment. And how sweet is that? You know, I also realized that kind of settee is, you know, it's kind of snake-like. And then I just, you know, when it was already too late, I called the painting Irena. After the girl, I thought, you know, this is even the snake. But it's not really, obviously. Yeah, but you know, Leonard Anderson once told me, you express yourself in spite of yourself. And I was so aware of how self-conscious she was, and I had no idea that would translate in the painting as I was doing it, and it did. And I'm glad it did, because I think I think it's interesting, and I think that kind of unwarranted female self-consciousness is really quite touching. This is a figure in interior, I guess. Yeah, a friend of mine, he just there was a version of this earlier. He had these funny orange boxers, and And yeah, I love the bedding also again. And it's a quirky painting actually. But it developed a nice surface to it. This is another painting I finished back home. I did a few studies while in Italy. You know, my apartment in Jerusalem does not look like this at all. In fact, it was so colorful that in order to kind of break that up a little bit, I put a white sheet on 2 chairs on the right side to kind of break up all the colors going on in that particular apartment. It was a good, you know, it's an apartment in a palazzo. So it had these just really funky walls. And I mean, funky is a little irreverent, but the wall paintings had to be late 1700s. And I mean, obviously they were retouched. So, you know, it was wild. It was beautiful, but yeah, I needed to quiet it down somewhere. I included a couple of details. That's the white sheet that I put over 2 chairs. Oh, and then came Corona, and we were in lockdown, and I couldn't have a model over or anything like that, and I moved from the whites to the blacks, I guess. I guess it was kind of a dark time, and I had a photo of this wonderful girl who modeled for us in New Hampshire that I took inside my camera obscura. And so I had a series of interesting photos of that kind. And I just thought maybe to do some paintings based on them. Because what I found interesting about them is that I was thinking about how in Vasari, there was that argument between, I believe, Giorgione and a sculptor. And the sculptor says, you know, how sculpture can achieve things that painting cannot, because, you know, you can walk around a sculpture and admire different angles of it, but you cannot do that with a painting. And then Giorgione, as a response, paints this painting where, because of the water and a pane of glass, or I don't even know, there's the reflection of the figure on all sides, and yet it also had color, and in a way he managed to outperform the sculptor. But I was thinking about some of the things that sculpture achieves when it's fragmented, as we know antiquity to so often be. And that wonderful line by Bernard Berenson that Israel used to read to us in Italy about never seeing a sculpture missing a head, and a headless sculpture and missing the head, excuse me, something to that effect. And I was thinking about these beautiful fragments that were so complete in antiquity. And I was thinking, how can a painting kind of compete with that? So with that, and I thought, you know, I never want to do these things overly, I don't want them to be overly contrived. I much rather it somehow actually happen in nature than decide to just, you know, amputate my figures on the canvas. So in this instance, you know, her head was blocked by the frame of my camera obscura. And I started to explore the subject. And this one in particularly, not only was I thinking about that, but I was thinking about the Venus of Callipyge that I saw in Naples, a wonderful sculpture. And she's not so much bringing her skirt down, but lifting her skirt. It's crazy. You have to. I didn't include it in this slide talk because we made a post about it, but do look it up. The Venus of Callipyge. Fantastic, fantastic sculpture. And still very much in lockdown. I painted a photo I had of a dinner, you know, in at the wonderful artist Susanna Phillips' house. It's her and in the doorway, and her husband Chaim Tenenbaum. I like, this is also maybe from Vuillard, well, not just Vuillard, from Georges de Latour as well, but I do like a table in a painting. And then I was finally able to receive people again, and my wonderful friend and painter Daisy came to sit for me. And this is a study I did for a bigger painting. And very quick painting. Didi just pointed out recently, he said is very Whistler, which is funny. I guess it is. I don't use transparencies like he does, and I just have to do different hands, but I guess it does come through in this one. And this is a more pursued painting I did of her. And with this painting, I was really happy because I had tried and failed to do a painting with this kind of crop in the past, where it's cropped by the forehead, you know, right into the hair, and then cropped early in the legs. And I don't know why. It was just, it's a situation that has presented itself to me, and I felt that I always failed. And here it worked out. And it was very satisfying for me. I mean, amongst, I like this painting for other reasons as well, but it was, for that, it redeemed those other efforts that I had gone through in the past. And I'm always very blown away by this Leonard Anderson, this painting, and this crop is even crazier than anything I tried to do. But in my mind, this was my response to this painting. Terrific painting, insane composition. Oof. And then this was just I don't know what came over me, but I liked it in the end. My birthday is July 28th, and it happens to be the day that Robespierre was decapitated. And there's this image of, they're not sure if it's the actual head. I think it might be from the first model, like Madame Tussaud made of Robespierre's decapitated head. And there's like this black and white image, and the jaw is a little bit more, he's more disfigured in it, because for those of you who know French history, or who don't know rather, he was shot in the jaw a day before he was decapitated. So that's why he kind of had that band-aid kind of keeping his jaw to his face, which is, it's kind of interesting that he couldn't really talk much by the end. I didn't want it to be a gory painting. I just wanted to paint that photograph, but I didn't. I like the bow. I didn't. So it's actually, if you see the original, you know, the jaw is a little bit more bloodied, and as you can see, I put very close colors where, you know, you could almost miss the fact that it's a neck on a plinth, because, you know, I wasn't trying to make a gory painting. I was just trying to paint Robespierre's head. And I did. That's really all I could say about that. And then I here and there, you know, I just have my friends, fellow painters, come over to sit for paintings. And this is a friend. And also, this is Alexa Buffon, very good painter, very, very good friend of mine. And just kind of here and there, I just, you know, have to do some works from straight observation, kind of just reorient myself. And that's what that is. I'm glad I got in her crazy tattoo there. I was told her there was something quite painterly about that tattoo, and then she told me that she actually brought the flower itself to the tattoo artist, and he did it from observation. I guess that's why I had such kind of nice color. And this is just a fresco, because I could have placed it anywhere within the lecture. I put it here because you know, I started to ask myself questions about those surfaces again. Here and there, I stop looking at everything else and start looking at fresco. And yeah, I did this another kind of like the Robespierre. It's just I was thinking about Leda and the Swan as a subject and why it was painted so often. I did some transcriptions based on the Michelangelo one, and there's a wonderful Rubens one as well. And I just yeah, so I did this kind of based on fresco, based on the sculpture. There was another little sculpture I discovered that I tried to make a Leda and the Swan based on, and it's such an interesting piece of antiquity. And I found in our book of Eng drawings that Ang actually made a drawing of that sculpture as well. So I felt rather affirmed in that particular moment of bizarre obsessions. As you can see, I just get kind of possessed by different ideas at different times. Yeah, and here, I'm less concerned about more spontaneous feeling portraits or whatever. I'm painting heads. I'm kind of I here and there I like to go back to basics, and I'm just like, let's draw, let's paint a head. And wonderful friend Carmel, beautiful girl, sat for me, and I painted her head. And same with Rivka Slamowitz. I had painted her sister in a previous image, and I painted her. She was pretty pregnant here. I think she gave birth soon after. And from Fresco to Gwenjon, which in this particular painting, I think you can see the connection. What a great painting. What can I say? And so I did this painting, kind of thinking about that painting. There was this bathroom in the studio I was renting at the time that was had these fantastic yellowish walls and yellowish tiles, and well, off-white. It was all very kind of closely related, and I just had to do a painting in there. Another friend. In a way, I can't explain how, but I think this painting kind of came to be after my exploration of Lita and the Swan. I know there's no swan in it, but maybe she's the swan. I don't know. But I understood something about it in that bizarre exploration that yielded not too many paintings I want to show. And then, we went to New York my husband had a show in New York. And so we were there for a month, I think. And I didn't paint for a bit, and I came back home. And at this point, I don't know if you guys have noticed, it had been quite a few years since I had painted landscape, or painted landscape regularly, at least. And I just thought, how do I reorient myself? How do I, get back into, how do I get back into my process? It was a long trip. And I just thought, I started getting back into landscape. And this is a view from my window. I started with just a view from my window. And this is that view at late afternoon. And then I did it closer to evening. And then I got back out there. Oh, and another still life happened. you know, literally, just my fridge when there's sunlight again, to be honest. In my fridge, when there's a strong blast of light, it's very reflective. And I just, you know, it was after Hanukkah and we had these dirty dishes. And I just, the way the sun was hitting it was beautiful. I did it. I did a premiere coup in my kitchen. This is the legend of the True Cross here in Jerusalem. And I always wanted to know how to paint it. And I'll tell you that, I don't know if I can't use the mouse here, but that little bit of sky implied in the left-hand corner, that little dot of sky and little bit of sky more to the right, it's a complete fabrication. I mean, there's all these buildings there. But I think that little bit of sky helped make this work. This is a dilapidated abandoned structure somewhere in the German colony. That gray low wall is something to do with construction. And there's quite a bit of garbage on the floor. Yeah. Oh, and this is quite a bit of the bigger view, looking out towards the old city of Jerusalem from Abu Tor, where I used to live. And those walls are the walls of the old city. And yeah, this is the biggest landscape I've ever made, actually. It's not huge, but it's large, relatively speaking. And then I painted a previous student, very, very wonderful head. Wonderful to paint. I have in the apartment I live in now, there's quite a few rooms with skylight. And it just really presents a whole new opportunity as far as painting heads. You know, it accentuates the upper eyelids and you know, different light situations. It's just it's almost a different subject. It's great to explore. And speaking of skylights, this is also skylit. Yeah, I enjoy it very much. It's a beautiful light for painting. Obviously here too. Here he's standing directly underneath the skylight. This is my niece. I always wanted to paint her. She's got this wonderful lower lip, these beautiful eyes. And my niece-in-law, she's Didi's niece, my niece by marriage. I don't know how to say these things. Eliana. Wonderful girl. Oh, and then I had this student that came in all the way from Australia. But she was also actually Welsh by blood. And in these parts, that's really exotic. I mean, maybe not from where some of you guys are watching, but you know, from Jerusalem, I was just like, how do I paint this girl and not make her look like a vampire? Which she started off looking like a vampire at first because I'm so not used to painting someone with that complexion. And she kind of with her dark hair and her very pale complexion, she kind of reminded me of some of those really wonderful kind of spontaneous portraits that Dickinson, some of them, not even his premier coup, some of them, even some of his early work, he had these kind of interesting kind of full-faced women with dark hair, and I just thought I'm gonna do just kind of like a really spontaneous kind of composition with her, and I did anyway, and it was a lot of fun to paint her, getting those pale tones with her dark hair and kind of making that harmony work was a lot of fun. And then I'm back to my window again, painting the view from outside my window. At this point, well, not even a little before this point, I mean, here also, I finished this painting after I gave birth, you know, so at this point, I have a baby and I'm trying to get some work done. And so landscape, you know, that's what I did. This is funny. I called it Yael Street because that's the street it was on. And a painter and a friend of mine, Ronit Goldschmidt, messaged me and she said, that was my grandfather's house. That was the first place we stayed in Jerusalem when they moved from South Africa. So I said, can I call it Mr. Goldschmidt's house? Because that's a much better name. And she said, sure. This is my, you know, of all the landscapes I've done, this is my first early morning painting. I used to be afraid of morning paintings, you know, the way that light is kind of tracing around everything like that. Come to think of it, it's a little similar to what the skylight does with the figure. Maybe that's why I was finally up for it. But this is a morning painting. That's not. I used to mostly do late afternoon. And it's just another one that I just I couldn't resist. This was actually happening. There was a cast shadow of a cypress and a cypress from behind the building continuing, and yeah, just it was a beautiful situation. So I went for it, and that's it. That's all the paintings I have for you tonight. You can unmute yourselves.
Wow, Deborah, I'm blown away. That was a wonderful, wonderful talk. Thank you so much. Feel spoiled. At this stage in the talk, we wanted to open up open up to the audience for questions. I'm not sure what the sort of most orderly way of doing this is, but there's a chat tab at the bottom. If you click on that, you can perhaps type question, and then you can unmute yourself and just go straight ahead, or just it's probably the best way to do this. So would anybody like to ask Deborah a question? Any questions out there?
I mean, I see there's some questions in the chat.
I beg your pardon. Okay, Judith, are you out? Are you here?
I
No.
can address some of the questions in the chat.
Sure, let's do it like that. Why don't you? So let's beg your pardon. Well, there's quite a lot of questions. Didn't realize.
So,
First one is,
Elhanan,
you go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
what advice would you give painters who wish to improve their color? Elhanan wrote color the British way. Okay.
As you would. As you would.
Well, I would first of all specify that desire. You know, is it color or your color harmonies? You know, what is it that you're trying to improve? You know, to just decide to improve color. First of all, looking at painting. That's number one. That's the obvious thing. More specifically, looking at Coro. If you want good color, just look at Coro. Or Velasquez. But I would specify, I would try to specify that desire, that yearning for better color, into what is it exactly do you want? Do you want an ability to have more interesting grays, more interesting harmonies, more interesting keys, and then you will know who to look at to activate, and to find the answers you're looking for. You know, you have to be sometimes a little more specific about what you're looking for, while staying in the abstract. I mean, you're looking for color, so you're staying in the abstract. But in order to know how to pull from paintings, you need to have a question that kind of gnaws away at you. Like, how did Velasquez have these harmonies that almost sparkle? They're glistening, you know, like how does he have this range of you know, where it's obscura, while things also feel kind of high key? Well, you have to kind of be going crazy, but like, how do they do that? How does Ang's have these like porcelain figures, and then the backgrounds could be so kind of these rich dark grays, and you know, these kind of wine colored fabrics. How do you make that range work? You know, you kind of have to make yourself crazy with a kind of a how question, and then you start to really be able to internalize what you're seeing in paintings. Because the obvious answer is looking at paintings, but how do you internalize what you're seeing in them?
I was actually going to ask you, thinking of asking you this next question from Ido.
Oh,
some of the Sickert figures, yeah. Can you see the question?
so yes, Sickert. I had a pretty I looked at a lot of Sickert. I really did. And I looked at him for a while. I did have a period where I was looking at Sickert. I saw his show in Paris in the Petit Palais. It was a traveling exhibit. They unfortunately put too many of his works in that show. Definitely too many of his landscapes. After seeing his work in the flesh, I'm less into him than I was, which is not something that happens often. But he was instrumental at a certain point, you know, and I would have to say mostly compositionally. But even in the Paris one, he had that one is really beautiful. There's one where there's part of himself painting in a reflection, and his arm is in the frame of the painting. It's totally wild. That's it. Compositionally, I still like him very much. And the nudes, I like the nudes when it comes to Sicker. I mean, that's really where he shines for me. But yeah, you're right to pick up on that. I forgot that there was a period I was looking at him. Vermeer, I love. What's not to love? I mean, Vermeer is perfection. Vermeer is amazing. But I don't directly think about Vermeer, because it's scary to think about Vermeer. I mean, he's perfect. But I did grow up in New York, where we're blessed to have quite a bit of Vermeers. I mean, between the Frick and the Met alone, we're talking, I don't know, we're talking almost 10 Vermeers, you know. We're talking quite a bit of Vermeers that we have regular access to. So he's definitely there. I mean, there's that one in the Met, one of my favorites. Actually, as I was thinking of one of my favorite other ones came up that also is my favorite. It's hard to pick. But the woman seated at the table, I mean, just, oh my God, a terrific painting. It's just, it hurts to think about Vermeer, honestly. So I think about him indirectly. No, Judith, when I said camera obscura, I meant literally camera obscura. Didi's brother Avi used to make them. Not that I turned a room into camera obscura. That would be so cool. One day. Thank you. Thank you, Ruth.
Any more questions out there? Okay, lovely.
All right, none of these are questions anymore.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's exactly a question, but something I've spoke to you about quite recently is the sort of a more spontaneous and conscious synthesis of influence, and especially now as we've got to sort of, you know, participate in your own sort of painting journey, and you've managed to synthesize a lot of influences into your process. I'm just sort of wondering, you know, how that's, you know, your work has this wonderful spontaneity about it, and directness and urgency, but at the same time there's such a clear meditation on art history taking place. And I'm just wondering now, just compared to, you know, looking at your works in your early days, and how is that sort of dialogue still developing? It's a bit of a broad question.
Well, you have to keep challenging yourself. If you keep challenging yourself, you keep having these moments of how, just like I was telling Elchanan, you know, Lawrence Durrell, the author, once said, you know, you have to fabricate these kind of mini nervous breakdowns to keep the writing fresh, you know, otherwise it'll be flat. You know, you have to bring yourself to almost a moment of crisis where you go, how did they do it? You know, and that's how I look at, you said I look at art history. I don't even think about it as art history. I think about it as this thing I want to attain. And then from there, I try to find someone who did it, and then just think how, and that's what I paint. I paint that how, you know, with painting, you can actually do what Oscar Wilde said without getting in trouble, which is, you know, the only way to rid yourself of temptation by submitting to it. You can do that in painting without getting into as much trouble as he did. So that's, you know, you just have to bring to yourself to a place of, yeah, to your knees where you just go like, I don't know how to do this. And then you look at the art of the past with a kind of a freshness.
Another question from Anya. You see?
Joshua, can you read it out?
Yeah, sure. I think Deborah can see it.
Oh.
Can you see Deborah in the chat? Thank you so much. Beautiful paintings. Lots of them have, yeah.
Okay, so that's yeah, that's a good question. So it's a number of things that happen. I try not to contrive texture. Like I have friends who do it. I respect them for it. I don't build it up. I don't put any kind of you know, chalk dust or marble dust into the paint, you know. But I do, two things happen. Sometimes I do paint over paintings, you know, because frankly, I just want to paint and I'm too lazy or I don't have the material to prepare a new surface. So I just sacrifice sometimes good paintings, honestly, and paint over paintings. So sometimes there's a bit of texture from that. And sometimes unbelievably, it's just the painting itself. I do, well, you know, I use a lot of paint and I don't use big brushes. I use medium-sized brushes, medium to small, not tiny, but you know, like a four filbert. And you know, with that, you can really pick up a lot of paint. And I don't scrape nearly as much as I should. I kind of just, you know, pile it up. And I think that's how it happens. As far as the fractured feel, it's like, it depends on the painting, you know, that more pursued painting of Daisy, you know, there's still a little something fresco-y happening in the background, but you know, I pursued it more. It depends what the painting requires. And you know, if it has a bit of that fractured feel and I feel that it's okay, it just adds to the painting, you know, because like you don't have to spoon feed the viewer. You know, you can just, it teases the eye, lets the viewer kind of engage with the work, then I leave it. But if I feel that it needs to be more pursued, because sometimes it can be quite noisy, the fractured thing, you know, so it's something I have to be actually a little more aware of, you know, it's not contrived, but I do have to here and there quiet it down, you know. I like to use as an example, photographers are very aware and conscious of noise, you know, they literally know that they have to quiet certain areas. There's like noise reduction. And you have to do that as a painter as well. And it's nice to have texture and to put things down with a palette knife, and the kind of dark from underneath, let's say, would come through. Sometimes I leave it if it works, but if it doesn't work, I quiet it down because it can be quite noisy. And I do think that paintings, for the most part, should have a kind of a silence to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any more questions out there? I think Deborah's young Siggy probably needs to go to bed. There we go. We've got Florentina. Can you see that, Deborah?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Well, in the spirit of honesty, I don't always. I have destroyed a lot of paintings. So a great way to learn is by failure, going too far. You know, that's a great way to know how to maintain freshness in long-term work, is by losing that freshness by going too far. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with going too far. It means your curiosity got the better of you. And, you know, to flip the idea of failure, like Walter Pater said, failure is is to form habits. So, you know, if you want to keep things fresh, it's not so much a method, but it's kind of an attitude. It's an approach. So I am very aware of when I'm in a state of mind of just continuing. And if I feel like I'm just continuing and not kind of reinventing the painting, then does it prevent me ruining it? No, but then I don't do it. What I do to maintain freshness, to maintain that, or the right attitude, I do have a practical tip about that, actually, is that I work, and this is not for everyone's temperament. Like I said, I enjoy people with different temperaments. My husband is not like this, but if I have a painting that I have to continue and I'm afraid that I'm not in the right state of mind where I know how to maintain the freshness, I'll start a different painting. I'll do a number of starts, whether even if it's a figure painting, I'll do a landscape just to be back in that state of mind. And then I go back at it and I kind of try to emulate that spirit. I think that's the most practical tip I can give. It's not for everyone, but it works for me. I work on many paintings in tandem, and I always have the big one that I'm continuing, and then the smaller ones that are helping me kind of sort out the kind of things that I don't want to stifle in the bigger ones.
This is very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Any final questions? Okay. Deborah, thank you so much. It was absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
It was so nice for everybody to come and take part in this online talk. We had a great bunch of people, lots of friends out there. So hi to everybody. Just thought worth adding, for those that are in London, Deborah will have 2 paintings in the Hampstead Art Society summer show, which opens on July 7th, the private view on July 8th, and Deborah will be there in person, which is very exciting. So you can meet the artist, and Didi himself will also be giving a talk, I believe on the 10th or the 11th, but do you know the date? I'll check that out.
That was the 10th? Is the 10th the Thursday?
I think so. Something.
Sure.
One of those. It will be all be online on the Hampstead Art Society
Little
Instagram.
painters here. We can.
So, well done. Thank you so much, and good night. And yeah, thanks again. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.